Good morning, everybody. On the path to completionist, you're going to have to play a lot of different characters, some of which you may not actually want to play. Everybody has their own different preferred playstyle as to how they go about and interact with this game. Some people like melee characters, some people like ranged characters, some people like spellcasters. And hey, maybe you like all of them. But the reality of the situation is that everyone has a playstyle that they generally prefer over another. For example, I like melee characters and I like spellcasters, but I'm not super fond of ranged characters, bow users, crossbow users, and the like. So oftentimes when I get confronted with playing a character, if I have to pick a ranged option, it's never my first choice. And characters that can be pretty versatile and have a lot of different options are usually the ones that I enjoy the most because they give me a lot of different types of decisions I can make during the leveling process with my character. Which is one of the reasons why I deeply enjoy Warlock a lot, because this time, instead of playing Warlock as the traditional spellcaster, I decided to go with a more melee route, and I really enjoyed it. Warlock just has so much versatility built into the class to be able to accommodate pretty much any type of individual playstyle, whether you want to play with a ranged build, a melee build, or just do the classic Warlock blast thing. Heck, you can even be a crowd control and instant killer as a Warlock, and they're all kind of viable. And so today, I'm showcasing the Melee Warlock. Now, why would you want to play a Melee Warlock? They don't get quite as much direct damage as a lot of other classes get for their melee attacks. Specifically, they don't really get any individual bonuses to their actual hit chance and damage, which is quite difficult when compared to something like a fighter or barbarian, who get a whole bunch of those bonuses. Additionally, their base attack bonus isn't perfect for being able to pick up all of the feats, and they have very few things that actually synergize with melee, so why does it work so well? And the reason is the Enlightened Spirit Tree. The Enlightened Spirit Tree turns your Eldritch Blast into an aura that is constantly pulsing out of the base of your character. This aura deals damage to enemies, passively every few seconds, but it also applies a buff to you and all of your allies, increasing your defenses, increasing your health, and even adding damage onto all of your weapon attacks. So where you might not actually get a little bit higher base damage, you get to add extra magic damage, and that is where the Warlock starts to excel. You see, when you're playing as a standard melee like a fighter or a barbarian, you're just hitting the monsters, slamming them with a big hunk of steel that's been sharpened to do a bunch of damage. But as a Warlock, you might be doing some of that, but you can't hit as hard. However, you get to add a whole bunch of magic damage, and this has a major benefit in a lot of ways. The main benefit being the ability to bypass all different types of resistances on monsters. If you fight a demon and you don't have a good weapon, you may struggle dealing damage to the monster. However, the Warlock just gets to add a bunch of light damage and force damage onto all their attacks, and then all of a sudden, that demon is gone without even having the appropriate weapon to deal with it. Being able to attack from multiple angles, both with the physical damage and with the magical component, makes Melee Warlock a very versatile combatant. It's not the strongest, and it doesn't do the most damage, but it's kind of the laziest. You don't really have to think about what weapon you're using too much, because you kind of just hit stuff and it all kind of dies. Not only that, but another benefit of playing Warlock is that you don't need to take the cleave feats either. Generally, if you want to be hitting multiple targets in melee combat, you want to be taking cleave and great cleave, or get a area of effect attack from one of your enhancement trees, or be using two-handed fighting. Well, with Warlock, you get the abilities Eldritch Burst and Spirit Blast, which are two cleave-like attacks that come directly out of the center of your Warlock. They share a cooldown with Cleave and Great Cleave, and they deal magic damage in an area around you. Additionally, because they actually count as spells, you can use your metamagic feats on them, like Maximize and Empower, to significantly boost the damage on these abilities without actually having any type of spell power on your character. And while I do recommend putting on appropriate items to make your character powerful, the fact that you can play your character and not have to actually worry about putting on all the appropriate gear and still being able to deal a good amount of damage in an area of effect is great. This character, with no area of effect because I played it using single weapon fighting, still has a ton of it thanks to the aura that constantly pulses out damage and the Eldritch Burst and Spirit Blast attacks that I can use pretty consistently. It's also really flexible too. You don't just have to say, okay, well I'm going to go two-handed fighting, two-weapon fighting, single weapon fighting, sword and shield. All of those options are fully viable. You don't have to commit to one, you can try multiple, you can really do whatever you want, because the aura and a lot of the magic damage is so much heavy lifting. For the purposes of my character, I decided to go with single weapon fighting for two reasons. One, single weapon fighting increases your single target attack damage, so when you get to a boss or another large creature, you can just keep chopping at it away and kill it quicker than if I was to go with a different weapon style. I didn't really need the area of effect because the aura and the Spirit Burst and Eldritch Blast kind of take care of the area of effect, so it just helped me out with a single target. And there's also a new ability called Offhand Versatility, which makes it so that when you're wielding an orb, if you're in your offhand, if you roll a Vorpal, so you get a 20 on your die roll, it makes it so that all of your spells critically hit for the next 5 seconds. And wouldn't you know it, the Eldritch Burst, Spirit Blast, and your Aura Pulses all count as spells, which means, without gearing any crit on this character, I could just watch for when I got that proc, wait till I saw the Vorpal, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 I'm dealing out critical hit damage and doing a very, very high amount of damage without actually needing to have the appropriate gear for it. Overall, this character was an absolute breeze to solo level through on Reaper 1, and whenever anyone joined in, I would just kind of walk around, having the super high amount of Use Magic Device, allowing me to easily heal people to keep them alive, with the aura also giving temporary hit points to all of my allies, and just being able to resurrect and do whatever I want, again with Use Magic Device. It made the character fairly strong. Additionally, this character used Vistani knife fighting, although that's not necessary because I wanted to kind of lean into more physical single target damage. However, this definitely works with pretty much any weapon. Heck, as long as you have Fade Arc Illusionist, you can just use Charisma Hit and damage from the little short sword that you can summon, which is also good enough, although I use Charisma Hit and damage out of the tree to then get access to Vistani knife fighting, so I can use daggers instead. In fact, this character is really strong, and you don't even need to have Charisma to hit and damage. You can do a hybrid, you can make it with Strength instead. There's a lot of different options, which I will be sure to let you know what you can do with that in the description of this video. So if you're looking for like a physical guide that you want to follow, you're able to find one right down there. I enjoy Warlock, and I really enjoy Melee Warlock, and I had a lot of fun with this character life. And if you want to have fun with the exact same type of build that I'm running right here, then pay attention to me while I give you the build. Why blast people when you can blast them and stab them to death? And that's what you get with Melee Warlock. And so today, I'm here to showcase the Melee Warlock that I have created here. Now, this character is not the highest damage, but what it is tanky, defensive, and pretty much autopilot. You barely have to pay attention while playing this character, which is a massive benefit. There's lots of people that want their general video game experience to be kind of like half-cocked. You can really slouch and lean in back. You're like watching something on TV on the other monitor, or there's like a TV in the corner and you're barely paying attention. This build is for you, because this character is tanky, has enough damage, and the damage types that you deal basically ignore all defenses of all monsters that you come across. So, if that sounds good to you, Melee Warlock might be right up your alley. To make this character work, number 1, max out your Charisma. It's the most important stat. It does all your damage, it does everything else. You need that. Number 2, Constitution. It's good to have. And then number 3, all these other stats are kind of irrelevant. You don't really need them. I have some intelligence for some extra skill points. You don't really need it. So that's pretty much all you need. If you don't have any tomes or anything else, you could possibly drop down your con or your charisma just a little bit to maybe have some other stats, but you don't need dex or intelligence. They don't do anything for you. As far as your skills go, all you need is 7 points of balance. So get 7 points of balance, and then spellcraft and use magic device. The rest of this stuff is entirely optional, but balance, spellcraft, use magic device, those are essential. And if you have an 8 intelligence, you can take all of those. I started with a 12, so I have all this other stuff I don't care about. As far as your feats go, during the leveling process, you want to take all of the combat style feats. Single weapon fighting, improved single weapon fighting, greater single weapon fighting, offhand versatility. The reason is, single weapon fighting with this character, I chose this over the two-handed fighting, because with single weapon fighting, it allows anybody to do this. You don't need like tomes for the two-handed fighting for strength, or dual wielding. Instead, you can just use balance, so it doesn't require any main stats, so it's great for like a first life or a starter character. And offhand versatility is amazing. Whenever you Vorpal somebody, which is when you roll a 20, whenever you're actually attacking someone, it makes it so all your attacks automatically critically hit. Now you're going to notice that there's this aura pulsing out of my character. That aura will get a critical hit. It does damage to enemies. It critically hits twice because it pulses out every 2 seconds. So while I have offhand versatility, it just goes, oh, I just critically hit everybody. I just critically hit everybody again. So you don't even need to have spell crit for this character to actually work. So that's why you want to take these feats as you level up. Those aren't the only things, though. You also want to take the meta magic feats Maximized and Power. Important note, you will want to try to fit in Quicken, as I did not use Quicken on this character because this is before the new Epic Destiny update, and I can still use Quicken here. So I can still have Quicken for free from Fatesinger. You can't do that if it's update 51, which is right around the corner, or possibly even literally out by the time this video comes out. So you will want to try to fit in Quicken in here. As far as the epic feats go, you can have a lot of flexibility. I just did whatever. I grabbed Wellspring of Power for some damage, Epic Eldritch Blast. I did say the only two that are necessary are Epic Eldritch Blast and the Arcane Feat Epic Pact Dice. These are the only two that matter. The rest of them, you can do whatever. I took Wellspring of Power, which I forgot to use 90% of the time because I was spacing out. And Intensify, which just gives more damage onto your Eldritch Burst and Spirit Blast. Important note, these meta magic feats don't apply to the aura that you see down there. Instead, they only apply to some of the enhancements, which we'll take a look at in just a second. And then as far as your legendary feats, I took Scion of Celestia, and that's what you would want to take with this character, and that's what you want to take after the changes coming with Update 51. As far as the spells go, the pact that I picked was, I forgot to talk about the Warlock Pact, but I picked the Celestial Pact, and I picked it specifically because you get Bless, which is great. It gives you +5 to hit damage, or sorry, not to damage, but +5 to hit at level 20, which is great. And you get Prayer, which is an extra +5 to hit and damage and saving throws at level 20. That's really good. Plus, you get Magic Circle against Evil, which makes you immune to Greater Command, which everybody loves being immune to. And you get Holy Aura, which is a stacking 4 armor class and 4 bonus to saves. So, by picking this character for your melee, you get +5 to hit, +5 to hit, so that's +10 to hit total, 5 to damage, 5 to saves, and now an extra 4 to saves, so 9 to saves, 10 to hit, and 5 to damage from being Celestial. It's the best one for melee. However, due to quirks, this caps out at maximum cast level 20. However, in the new Epic Destiny system, you get 5 extra maximum cast levels for all your spells, which means at level 30 in Update 51, this will be +6 to hit, and then this will be +6 to all saving throws, attack rolls, and damage. So, cool buffs. You also get Freedom of Movement, which I actually didn't cast. I forgot to put it on my bar because I had an item. But this is also really good. And then you get Soundburst as well. And then the rest of it, you take defensive buffs. Jump and Shield is really good. I took Blur and Invisibility because those are nice. I liked Haste. I didn't take Displacement because you get it from the Enlightened Spirit tree. And I took Dimension Door here. Evards and Teleport because I'm lazy. And Evards is the only spell that you pretty much consistently cast. This is the best spell you get. So all these other ones, you don't really cast in combat. I didn't even use Wail of the Banshee. I didn't even put it on my action bar. I cast Hold Monsters sometimes, but not really. But Evards is just the best spell in the game. You pretty much just, every time you go to a pack, cast Evards, and you won't really run out of spell points because you don't cast anything else, which is kind of cool. Now, as far as the enhancements go and how this character actually shapes up, here's what we got. You ignore the race. I didn't put any points in the racial tree. But this is a Vistani Knife Fighter Enlightened Spirit. Now, the reason why I did Vistani is because it allows me to get this bonus, +1 confidence bonus to critical threat range and multiplier. It's just a little bit more damage, and critical damage scales your damage as much as possible, so that's why I did Vistani. If you don't have Vistani, you could spend your points somewhere else like Tainted Scholar or something. Just go get Vistani, but you could just spend them in Tainted Scholar and then use any other weapon type you want. Just be aware you will need to either get proficiency or wait until 12, where this gives you proficiency with all the martial weapons. However, I went with Vistani because it was the easiest to go with. So in Enlightened Spirit, you grab all the cores, you grab all the aura buffing things here, and the big things is Eldritch Burst and Spirit Blast. These are both attacks that you actually press, so if I showcase just the character here, when I press them, I can't do it in town. Whoops. Anyway, when you press them, your character does an extra burst. You just wave your hands down. It shares a cooldown with Cleave, but it allows your, basically all your damage that the aura is doing, plus extra. And because it's a spell-like ability, you can empower it, maximize it, quicken it, intensify it. Quicken doesn't affect these abilities, so you don't have to worry about quicken, but that's why you take empower and maximize and why I took intensify. When I cast it, mine counts as 300 spell power higher, and given the fact that my character right now at endgame, well not endgame, by the time I hit 30, only has 500 light spell power, that means my character is getting like almost a 65% damage boost on all these abilities for my meta magics, which is awesome for the leveling process. It actually means you kind of don't even need to use gear. You can just kind of let it explode and go for it. That's cool. Additionally, you want to grab this one as soon as you can, Brilliance, because this gives you the extra Constitution as temporary hit points. So this keeps you alive as long as your aura is active. You get Shining Through, which means you can't really die, because every time you press this button, you get 8 times your Constitution score. Score, not multiplier or modifier. So not 16, 42 times 8 as temporary hit points. Yeah, it's good. And then, of course, Displacement here. Out of Vistani Knife Fighter, this is all damage, baby, except for Deflect Arrows. Deflect Arrows is very nice, and it is not damage. But you get the haste boost, you get 20% extra double strike, you get +1 W on all your attacks, you get 20 melee power while using a dagger, come on, 5% double strike, and the crit. So your character gets 5% double strike, 5% double strike. Like, I'm a warlock and I have a bunch of double strike and melee power. Like, what is this? Then you grab Tainted Scholar over here because you want to get Utter Dark Blast. This makes it so your base damage of your Eldritch Blast is not force, it is now evil. And the reason why that matters is because the Enlightened Spirit is all light damage, so everything scales off of light. You add light damage to your attacks, you add light damage to your spells, and you add light damage over here. So you really want to make sure you have light and radiant spell power. That's kind of like the main thing. So instead of having to get force spell power too, you just take this, so it makes your base damage scale off of light anyway. Don't worry about the fact that it says evil damage. That's irrelevant. No monsters resist this in the entire game. Like, literally none of them. Every monster takes damage from this. So it is only a buff. Please take Utter Dark Blast if you are playing this build. And then finally, Fey Dark Illusionist, which gives you charisma to hit and damage. That's basically it. How I would actually level this, and how I personally did level this, so just so you have a point of reference, is I went Fey Dark Illusionist first, and I took this weapon, the Illusory Weapon, and got the Short Sword right away. This gives you charisma hit and damage, and proficiency. Something I did not know is that this actually gives you proficiency with the Short Sword itself. So as long as you have this ability, it also grants Short Sword proficiency, so you take 3 points here. Once you have those 3 points, then you're going to be putting the rest of your points into Enlightened Spirit, and you're going to take stuff as you go. Just all of this stuff as you go, and you can, I would say Power of Enlightenment, you ignore the most. So take everything else in order, but then ignore this one, and only take these when you need to get up to the next tier. That's what I did. I took like points here just to move up to the next tier, because I had extra points. But take all this other stuff, and then as soon as you can, get Brilliance and Spiritual Retribution. Once you have Brilliance and Spiritual Retribution, both of these, then and only then do you start investing points into Vistani Knife Fighter to pick up Haste Boost. So you want to grab Knife Expertise, the Rapid Slash, this, and then Haste Boost. Once you have 8 points and you have Haste Boost, you're not a dagger guy yet, don't use daggers. Then you want to spend enough points, so you want to get Familiar's Flourish, and then finally 2, so you have 7 points spent here for Charisma to hit and damage. And then, once you, at that point, which is level 9, you have, the 7 points here, no charisma, no points in Tainted Scholar, just enough to get the Constitution score pulse and the extra damage here, and you have Haste Boost. Then and only then do you then put on some daggers, and you can now start daggering your way through. Until that time, you just use the short sword. In fact, if you don't even have a good dagger, you can literally just use the short sword the entire time, all the way until you get single dagger, which is when you really, really want to swap in a dagger, because everything else still works, which is kind of neat. And then at that point, it's pretty freeform. I grabbed the haste boost here, I swapped to daggers, and then I finished off Enlightened Spirit, so I had like 8 points spent here, the 7 here, and then I finished off Enlightened Spirit, then I finished off Vistani, then I went to Tainted Scholar and grabbed Underdark, and then I spent 1 point of Charisma. So the Underdark Blast I got basically as my last thing when I went to Epics. But then it's great for the entirety of Epics. As far as Epic Destinies go, this is my Fatesinger tree, so if you're going to use it, copy this one, because it's really good. And then the only thing you need to know is that you want to twist Divine Crusader, but this is bad advice, because there's going to be a brand new Epic Destiny tree that is going to be coming out. So Imperial Magic's great, but you don't really need this. There's new Epic Destinies. They're all coming out really, really soon. So as far as which Epic Destinies should you use, try them out. My recommendations is to things that will work really well. Legendary Dreadnought is very powerful because it gives you access to Dire Charge, which you can use to knock down and stun monsters really easily. It gives you a lot of extra health and also damage. So that's very cool. Another one that's very powerful is Fatesinger. Fatesinger gives you some special attacks that give you some stuns, which your character doesn't really do that well. And because it gives you stuns, it also grants you a bunch of extra sonic damage per hit, a bunch of big booms, and cleave attacks that don't share a cooldown with your cleaves, so you can begin AoE God at that point. Or if you really want to funnel in on some of the spell power, you can use Draconic Incarnation instead, which is going to give you a lot of those like energy bursts and big blasts and stuff for some extra damage. Although at that point, really, you can mix and match all three. You can still have the attack from Fatesinger. You can get the extra damage and stuff from Legendary Dreadnought, because those are some good options. But that's kind of where my head is going, and that's what I recommend you do. The last thing I want to touch on is gear and what stats you need for this character. In general, while you're picking up gear, you want anything that gives you hit chance and damage. So if you can get any accuracy or deadly items on, I literally have none, and my character does more than enough damage, but it's just something to think about if you can get it. Actually, I think I have this accuracy item here, so that's not too bad. Other than that, you want charisma, anything that boosts your charisma, anything that boosts your evocation DCs, because that's how your blasts do. This blast is an evocation-based thing, so you want evocation stuff. Your pact is lightning, so lightning spell power is good. So I have something like Flint from the Sands of Manectaran. So it gives both, it's a dagger, it does lightning damage, so shocking blast. It has lightning strike, so it does a bunch of damage, and also has magnetism and lightning lore.
and it's part of the Writhing Storm set, so it's even part of like a lightning set. So this one's really, really good for leveling. If you want to use something like this, it's not too bad. And then outside of that, charisma, constitution, sheltering items for defense, and that's pretty much it. I just have like health, constitution, false life. I have some sheltering here. I'm using this set from Sharn that grants Flame Cleanse Fury. I don't even need the fire stuff. I just had it in my inventory. You want Radiance as you level up for all your light spell power. And yeah, so like I literally did all of epics with this. So Arcsteel Brim for the spell focus mastery and the insightful magical sheltering. The Blessed Vestments because it's the armor set for the Flame Cleanse Fury. I got the Cloak for the Radiance Lore Evocation. I got the Bracers for the Devotion Healing Lore, actually, and the Insightful Sheltering. So I didn't even need this hat. This hat actually does nothing, so I don't even need to wear it. I can literally not wear it. Doesn't matter. That's funny. So I had 2 open slots the whole time. I have this Insightful Charisma item I was using because I crafted it. I have this Insightful Constitution Sheltering item, which clashes with this Insightful Constitution False Life item. My gear is really overloaded, but it doesn't matter. And then I grabbed these Gloves of the Falcon to get me that Desert Writhing Storm set. This item is bad, and I need none of the stats, but I got that set bonus, so 4% extra artifact spell crit. Nice. And then I have the Flightfoot Greaves here for some move speed, and then this attack rating ring. That's pretty much it. Very low maintenance. You don't even have to do a whole lot, and you can kind of just like stand around. So if that's something you're looking at, and you want to, play on this type of character, and you're not sure what items you need, just run around, hit stuff. And at the end of the day, because you have the temporary hit point aura, you get a bunch of free hit points. Your character is super tanky. Like, I don't have good gear. My stats are great defensively. So it's a pretty easy level. It's an easy ride. And with the new Epic Destiny system, it should be great. But that's all I have for you today. So if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button below. Please subscribe because I have more content coming out for you. And both those things help. If you have any questions or comments, leave a comment down below. And I am done with this video. So thank you for watching.